Okay, the next section is on truth. So in the '09 edition, page 219, this is just a paraphrase, people are not wholly objective, but the method of science is and seeks truth. So this is his perspective on truth, the use of science, getting away of people's biases. Yes, human beings see the world a certain way. Yes, individual human beings see the world in different ways, but we, rather than embracing those biases, like many research methods do, science attempts to get rid of those because they are irrelevant, according to science. Those biases are irrelevant, and in getting rid of those biases by certain means, then we can get at the truth and get at reality as it is. Page 222, the first edition, quote, "Truth is the enemy of dogmas, and one dealt with as an enemy by small but growing numbers of intellectuals." So the point is that many, especially in the education field, there's all kinds of new perspectives, critical theory, postmodernism, stuff like that. They don't like this idea of one truth. And his point is that they don't like it because it defeats their purposes, their dogmas. So he says on the same page, 222, my truth versus your truth. That's a paraphrase. And now this is a quote: "As if truth could be made private property." So he's against multiple truths, or that a person has their own truth. Page 223. So he uses an example here. "Bats do not fly into plate glass windows, as birds sometimes do when relying on sight, indicating both differences in perception systems and the existence of a reality independent of those perception systems." So he uses that as an example to say that, yes, these different animals have different perception systems, much like human beings, although human beings have the same perception systems, but they have different ways of looking at the world, or because of their experiences and how they view different things and their subjectivities, all that. Yes, we know that. It's fine. Yet, nevertheless, there isn't a reality independent of that perception. On page 224 now, first edition, quote, "Mere subjective notions implicitly allow them to substitute their own preferred subjective notions as to what is, as well as what ought to be." So his point here is that if you begin with subjective notions, such as your biases and all that non-scientific ways of viewing the world, perhaps you could say, then you are going to then move on with your argument into ways that the world is supposed to be, or the odds. His point is that often what is the purpose of this is to substitute one's own agendas. Moving on, page 225, first edition, quote, "Being non-judgmental means evading consequences." So he uses as an example the Arab number system versus the Roman numeral system. The Arab number system is what we use today, 0 to 9. It is far more efficient than using Roman numerals, which are the X's and V's and I's and L's and M's and all that. Yet, could you even make that judgment? Can you make that judgment with a multiple truth perspective? Can you say that something is superior? Well, you cannot do that. And that's his point. He also says that there is no valid reason to be non-judgmental, because in saying that you shouldn't be you should be non-judgmental is a judgment. And this is also an argument against multiple truths, because in saying that there is no single truth, you are making a truth statement, and apparently an absolute truth statement. So it's self-contradictory. It would seem like the discussion should end, but for some reason it doesn't. Page 504, revised edition. So this is just a paraphrase. He talks about how public intellectuals are often created from intellectuals who are in disciplines that are not in the public eye. So he gives the example of Chomsky. Noam Chomsky was a linguistic professor and researcher. Linguistics is not exactly in the public eye all the time. You consider English professors or feminist researchers, sometimes they get out if they're radical enough. But the point is that some of those professors who want public, or to be in the public eye, or they want a public image, they then start writing books or speaking out about politics is an easy one to get in on. And Chomsky did exactly that. He wanted public imagery. He wanted to be in the public image or the public eye, and linguistics was not doing that for him, so he decided to write about politics, write about war and all that kind of stuff. Last quote for the truth section. This is from page 522, the Revised Edition. Quote, it is democracies that are most vulnerable to whatever unsubstantiated notions are prevalent among the intelligentsia and promoted to the public via the media and to the next generation through educational institutions. So his point here is, I think I talked about this in a previous section, democracies are vulnerable because knowledge is decentralized. Consider the autocratic systems of government, which is royalty. Consider the theocracy, religions, kinds of governments. All that knowledge is very centralized, very controlled, very tight. Democracies, free speech goes, and because of that, you have a rise of public intellectuals. Consider that public intellectuals did not exist, where you in the past, where you had largely governments ruled by autocracies and all that, because they would have been equivalent of doomsayers in those days. But now in democracies, you do have a rise of a different kind of people who wish to rule other people's lives. And so his point is that how they do this is through the media, how they get to the public, and to the children or to the young people through educational institutions such as schools and such as universities. And he calls students captive audiences on page 524 of the new edition, because since more and more people are going to college and university these days, more and more people are being subjected to the ideas of the intellectuals. And anyone who's been to university or is in university now will know that professors rarely speak only of the topic at hand or the course at hand. They often will go off topic and talk about sometimes politically charged ideas. So that's the end of the truth section.